Another thing that you might have picked up on in these is always, never. You tends to be accompanied by always and never. So when you catch those, that's a sign you really want to start sort of rejigging your communication. We're never saying you always, we're never saying you never, because actually it's usually not factually true. It could be true that 40% of the time they do this and 60% of the time they don't, right? None of us like to hear you always, you never. So we really want to work on that. Now let's talk for a minute about I statements, okay? I statements are really important. These are the way that we take responsibility for our own feelings, our own thoughts, our opinions, our emotions, and we communicate them effectively to another person. This mightn't be something that you're using that much with when you're doing kind of the reminiscence work, but certainly in relationship, I statements can make a massive difference to how well a conversation goes. Now, for a minute, I want you just to listen to two statements, and then I want you to think about what the difference is, okay? So here is the first statement. You always do this. If I don't agree with you on something, you pretend like you're fine with it, but then you refuse to talk to me for 3 days, and I don't know what's going on. You never just discuss it and then it's done. You're so passive aggressive. Okay, right? There's that one. Versus this one. I'm worried that if I don't just agree with you, I'm going to get this silent treatment for the rest of the day. I find that really confusing, and it's hard for me to know what to do then. Okay. So even when you were listening to those two, you probably felt the difference, even physically, right? So when we were saying, you always do this, you pretend like you're fine with it, you're so passive aggressive. Actually, if you were really listening to that, you probably noticed your stress levels rising just a bit. Now, if you were on the receiving end of that statement, what would happen? You would start to go into defense mode, right? You would be getting ready to fight back, right? That's what you statements do. They fuel the fire. They are like death to connection, okay? And we're all a bit guilty of them, because when the strong emotions come up, and we're trying to say to somebody, you do this and it hurts. You do this and it makes me mad. And it's not that that's wrong, because they might be doing things that hurt us and make us mad, right? But we're not communicating them in the most effective way, right? The more effective way is to say, I'm really mad about that. I'm really hurt by that. And that when we make this small little change, actually what we're doing is, again, creating space for the other person to not feel attacked and go, oh, okay, they're feeling angry about something that I've done, or they're feeling hurt. It's as though they're able to take that information when we use I. When we use you, they can't take that information because they're getting ready to fight. They're defending and getting ready to fight. So you can see the difference. It's actually pretty huge. Really tricky to do. So you get bonus points if you can remember to use I when you're having a fight with someone. That's like extra credit, because that's when it's really, really hard. Okay, get your pen and paper and let's try to just reframe a few you statements, okay? So the first you statement is, you have to try sushi. You can pause, reframe it as an I statement if you can. Good. So here, this could sound like something, I really like sushi. Do you want to try it? Okay, you can see the difference, right? Here's another one. You never listen to me. Okay, you can pause. Here you might say something like, I'm not feeling heard right now. I find it hard if you can't hear me. This kind of thing. Okay, and let's think of maybe a third one. Something like, I knew you were going to say that. You always, That's a particularly irritating one. So now you can reframe that as an I. Here you might say something like, oh, I was worried you were going to say that. That's actually not really understanding where I'm coming from. Actually, I mean this. Okay, you can see the difference. Now, another thing that you might have picked up on in these is always, never. You tends to be accompanied by always and never. So when you catch those, that's a sign you really want to start sort of rejigging your communication. We're never saying you always, we're never saying you never, because actually it's usually not factually true. It could be true that 40% of the time they do this and 60% of the time they don't, right? None of us like to hear you always, you never. So we really want to work on that.